How do you explain the baby oil and the lubricants? 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
I don't think it was 1,000. I mean, there's a Costco right down the street.
Well, guys, I figured it's probably about time, right? For the last week or so, one single man and his actions have been terrorizing the internet, and considering the fact that I sometimes talk about real things on this channel, I thought I should see what all the hubbub's about. Yeah, we're talking about Diddy. Now, if you don't know who Sean Diddy Combs is, go ahead and click off this video for me, okay? I'm sorry, I know normally I would try and do a recap, give you some context, but I mean, if you don't know who Diddy is at all, that's honestly kind of impressive, and you should just keep that as part of your personality rather than have it ruined by the things you're gonna hear today, okay? I'm looking out for you. But if you do know Diddy, then you're probably sick of hearing about him at this point. For the last few weeks especially, and really the last 3 or 4 months if you're considering the whole timeline here, I don't think there's been a single name I have heard more times over the last 10 days than Diddy. Now, if you know who Diddy is, but you somehow don't know why he's so relevant right now, well, there's a lot. And I'll go through the major stuff, I'll cover the big headlines, but I'm not going to be going through every single detail because at this point, I feel like it's kind of been done enough, right? Everybody and their mother, really the entire family, has been talking about this for the last week straight. There's only so much about baby oil and freak-offs that I could tell the average person that they're not already going to know about. So don't get me wrong, a lot of the focus of this video is going to be on what Diddy has done, but I do want to take part of this video to talk about some of the more recent developments, and more importantly to me, the way that the general population has reacted to all of this coming out. So if you were looking for a deep dive into the freak-offs, I sincerely apologize, but that's not what you're gonna find here. But don't worry, I will talk about baby oil just for you. Okay? That I can promise. But with all that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's begin. Please subscribe. Okie dokie, so Sean Combs, aka P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Diddy, man of many names, was arrested on September 17th and charged with sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. This came from a federal indictment that has evidence and allegations dating back as far as 2008. In the indictment, prosecutors allege that since 2008, Combs has been part of a criminal organization that engaged in, or attempted to engage in, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice, and other offenses. Damian Williams, who is the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, made multiple statements about the case, one being the indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity. Now, you hear about these charges, you hear about this criminal activity. Some of you might be wondering, what exactly are they referring to? And it's what seems to be the main focus of this case, and really the main focus of anybody talking about this stuff. It's the freak-offs. Now, some of you might be wondering, what exactly is a freak-off? We're going to get more into the dictionary definition here soon, but basically, they are these sex parties that Diddy was holding, which, by the way, that's allegedly the name he used for them, which it's not funny, but I mean, let's be real, it's kind of funny. That sounds like some stupid Gen Z shit. If you told me that term originated on TikTok, I would not question it at all. The fact that a 54-year-old man was referring to his sex parties as freak-offs, that's some pretty comedic shit, but I digress. Combs was allegedly referring to these incidents as freak-offs, according to the indictment. Prosecutors say that Combs directed these freak-offs and often recorded them and distributed controlled substances to the victims, which helped make them obedient and compliant. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. The victims didn't believe that they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. Prosecutors also accused Combs of carrying or brandishing guns to intimidate victims and threaten victims and witnesses. Upon raiding Diddy's home, they found firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. This article doesn't mention it, but they also seized various kinds of drugs, videos, and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, which I find kind of strange because baby oil is a terrible lubricant. I know for some reason that's like a hot topic, but if you're using baby oil for lube, your shit's fucked up. If not, it will be eventually. But I mean, I guess that's not really what's important here. If Diddy is convicted on all all 3 charges, which at the moment seems largely dependent on who's willing to come forward, which given the size of this case and the nature of it, with what's at stake, I don't really know how likely it is that many people will. He could be facing a life sentence in prison. Now obviously there's more information than that, there's more nuance to everything, but I feel like what I've covered so far is enough to sort of give you the context you need to understand the why of the things we're talking about moving forward. Starting off with Diddy's lawyer. Mark Agnifilo, which is probably not how you pronounce it, has said some pretty interesting shit during this whole Diddy debacle. If you remember earlier this year, there was this video circulating Twitter of Diddy chasing down a woman in a hotel. That was a video of him and his ex-partner Cassandra Ventura, whose lawsuit against Diddy was apparently a pretty big catalyst in getting this much larger case pushed forward. If you didn't see this video, you can Google Diddy Hotel and it'll come up. I'm not going to show it on YouTube because it's a video of a woman rushing out of a hotel room, Diddy chasing after her wearing nothing but a towel, which makes it seem like this woman was trying to escape from Diddy's room while he was showering or something, who knows, and he proceeds to beat the shit out of her. Throws her on the ground, kicks her on the ground, all kinds of shit. And you want to know what old Mark said about that? He argued that it was just a troubled but consensual relationship and that the sex and violence involving the freak-offs were totally separate and motivated by totally different things. If you watch the video I'm talking about, doesn't look too consensual to me, Mark. In regards to this bigger case, he has said stuff like, "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs." He described Combs as a music icon, self-made entrepreneur, loving family man, and proven philanthropist. He said he's an imperfect man, but he is not a criminal. Pretty sure beating the shit out of a defenseless person makes you a little bit worse than imperfect, and that's not even considering any of the other allegations against him. But most recently, Mark Agnifilo has made a complete fool of himself after he made a few statements about this case, specifically about the baby oil. And thankfully for us, for this, it's all on video.
I've been with him since 8 o'clock this morning, and it's about almost 3 o'clock now. He's just laser focused. He's engaged. He's helpful. He's confident. You know, we're going through our defense as we do every day, and his spirits are relatively good.
How do you explain the baby oil and the lubricants? 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
I don't think it was 1,000. I think it was a lot. I mean, there's a Costco right down the street. You know, I think Americans buy in bulk, as we know.
Okay, so I looked this guy up, and apparently he has over 30 years of experience in law, which I don't know what those 30 years have entailed, but to whip out the Costco excuse when you have a lifetime's worth of lubricant in your home, and you just happen to be being accused of having these massive unconsensual sex parties? Really? He just bought in bulk? That's the best thing you guys could come up with? That's insane. What makes it even more insane is that Costco was very quick to debunk this by telling sources that they don't even carry baby oil, so this would be impossible. You'd think, given the millions of dollars that Diddy is likely paying this guy, he would have at least checked to see if the claim he was making was even possible before trying to feed this horseshit to the public.
And you know, this is consensual adults doing what consensual adults do. You know, we can't get so puritanical in this country to think that somehow sex is a bad thing, because if it was, there'd be no more people.
Ooh, a classic, dropping the "you guys are all just prudes" defense. Maybe I take back what I said earlier. I don't think anybody's gonna have to come forward for them to win this case. I think this guy's gonna win it for him. Now, quite possibly the only thing bigger than the case itself right now are the conspiracies that surround it. Twitter is full of them, and at this point there are so many circulating right now that fact checkers don't even have time to get to them all. So many fabricated things are being passed off as true, and that only takes away the focus from the actual case here. Like, we have this huge federal indictment claiming that this guy's been hosting these parties for 15 years, doing unspeakable shit, and for some reason that's like not enough for the average person. We have to try and ham it up more. Personally, I've just never really understood that, and that goes for any sort of case like this. You've got somebody who's been in the spotlight for the last 30 years, potentially going to prison for the rest of their life for some heinous shit, and people are still like, yeah, but that's really not enough for me. I need to make a Twitter post right now saying saying that Diddy has tunnels underneath his house. It's like, what? The amount of conspiracy theories I've seen in the last week has been insane. All this stuff about Usher and Pink deleting their tweets. Every single person who's ever taken a picture with Diddy or said anything about Diddy or listened to a song by Diddy, they're all being called into question. It's just like, calm down. You've got a guy who's been an A-list celebrity for 30 years. Of course there's going to be a lot of people involved who did absolutely nothing and had no idea anything was going on. Now, was it likely an open secret? Is it possible that many people knew exactly what was going on, but just didn't say anything because either they were involved or they had some other reason to keep quiet? Yeah, probably. But it seems pretty pointless to constantly speculate on who those people are. If the feds have been trying to build this case for who knows how long, and they're just now bringing it forward, what are the chances that some random person on Twitter is going to be able to find all this information that they couldn't? I think pretty low. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in regards to this whole situation is, like I mentioned earlier, just what the general reaction all this coming out has been. Now look, before I get into this, I want to make this clear. I've made my fair share of Diddy jokes. I'm not trying to ride a high horse here. I'm part of this problem. But I feel like the general reception of all this coming out has been kind of lax, especially any of the allegations or conspiracies involving men. If you've been active on Twitter or really just the internet in general, I'm sure you've seen some of what I'm talking about here. I've seen this mainly involving Meek Mill and Justin Bieber. It seems like it's basically turned into one big joke that anybody involved with this, especially the males, has been sexually assaulted. Like, that's the punchline. I've talked about this before, and this will likely not be the last time I talk about it, but I've seen this general push on the internet for more awareness about men's mental health, which is great, don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of people are focusing on the wrong thing. Making jokes about Meek Mill and Justin Bieber being sexually assaulted, or worse, by somebody who held power over them, shit like that is basically the main reason that men's mental health is not taken seriously. If we can't even collectively agree that, hey, maybe we shouldn't joke about a 15-year-old boy being invited to a freak-off by a grown man who did who knows what to him, then how the hell are we ever going to get people to take things like a man having depression seriously? Men being R-worded, and I hate to say that, but YouTube really will give you the fucking smackdown if you say the actual word, is very rarely taken seriously, even in 2024. We can see evidence of that with all the prison jokes people still make, all the jokes that have come out of this Diddy situation. It is a serious problem. It happens to a lot of men, and there is evidence to suggest that it goes way underreported because of the societal stigma. And you can say it's all jokes, and that's just how some people react to information like this, and look, I get that. But I feel like there is a pretty discernible difference in how people react to stuff like this when the victims are men. And look, I'm not gonna sit here and rant, I'm not trying to get up on a soapbox, but it's still pretty disheartening to see people make jokes about Justin Bieber or Meek Mill or Usher or any other person and not think twice about it for seemingly only one reason. Well guys, what do you think? What do you think is gonna end up being the outcome of this case? Personally, I feel like due to there being so many eyes on it, they're gonna be pretty pressured to get some sort of conviction. Obviously, there's already been talks of a plea deal. You'd think with as many people involved as it's been made out to seem that there are, that it would be relatively easy to get some pretty damning evidence. But I mean, at the same time, when you have the funds and the connections that somebody like Diddy has, you can make stuff like that go away. A lot of people seem to think that this is going to end up playing out like the Epstein situation, and you know, honestly, I would not be surprised. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and walk on over to that subscribe button and touch it. It's free. It won't cost you anything. But for now, that's all I have for you today. Bye.